1-800-606-4263. Joined in studio that is by Matt Bevin. How you doing?
I am doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it was. I know you were in the building. I think you were talking to Tom Dupree, and so we were glad we could grab you and bring you in for a couple segments. And it all works out. I didn't even plan it this way, but after we had just booked you to come on the show, this comes up on Breitbart just a couple hours ago. I don't know if you've had a chance to read about it or anything like that, but Senator McConnell, according to some unnamed sources who were on some sort of call, a call with donors on October 30th, he called the Tea Party movement a bunch of bullies and said that he wants to punch them in the nose, rhetorically speaking, I would assume. So how do you react to that?
It smacks of a crazy amount of desperation. He's picking fights now with seemingly everyone because he's not sure who his enemy is. He's picking fights with everybody but Democrats in the Senate, apparently. I find it just flabbergasting that he's doing so much to undermine the very base that he himself would need to be reelected, and it only just gives encouragement and enthusiasm to my campaign, frankly.
Now, how much credence do you lend to this? Do you believe that he actually said this? That he would actually come out and attack the Tea Party movement in its entirety like that?
I do. Now, he'll probably try to parse that. He always does. It's every time he gets caught saying something crazy like this, he'll come out and say, I wasn't saying it about all the Tea Party, just these Tea Party people, or not all Republicans, just these ones. And it's, we didn't misspeak. We meant thus and such. He's always having to parse his words, but I think he truly is at war with anyone who would dare to think that he isn't worthy of another 6 years, no questions asked.
Now, I want to throw the numbers out, 280-2287, 1-800-606-4263. If you have any questions or comments for Matt Bevin, you can call in 280-2287, 1-800-606-4263. According to the people on the call, he specifically named Senators Mike Lee and Ted Cruz. I guess it's no surprise that those people don't exactly get along. But here's what jumped out at me is him saying, "Oh, we need to punch him in the nose. That's what you do with bullies." I don't mind that kind of rhetoric. It's just that I would love to see the Republicans using that rhetoric and having that attitude with liberal Democrats.
Amen. I mean, when has there been a released call or an article written about him having anything even closely approximating this kind of animosity toward any of the Democrats or liberals that are in the U.S. Congress? I have not seen any of it.
What do you think? Is this just popping off at the mouth? Because he seems like he's much more disciplined than that. What would be the strategy in alienating the Tea Party base?
My understanding from that is that he was speaking to a bunch of big donors for Crossroads, which, frankly, I don't know how that's even legal, because you're not supposed to coordinate between campaigns and PACs. I'll leave that to the legal minds to figure out. But truth be told, I don't know what he's doing talking with top donors to a super PAC. But it was with that group. I think he thought he was in among friends. And I think that's how they truly think. I think there's a sense of arrogance and a sense of belittlement of anyone who would disagree with them. Karl Rove and those that are inside the Beltway have a certain sense of arrogance that I think the American people, and certainly those of us in Kentucky, are getting fed up with.
We were Garrett and I were yelling at each other about this before the show. We were kind of arguing about this. What do you think? Do you think that the difference in the Tea Party movement and guys like McConnell and the Republican establishment are there differences really just stylistic and they have different methods, or do you think that there actually is ideological differences between the two?
No, I think it's a function about who actually gets to be in charge. Is it we the people? Is it really the electorate who at the ballot box have a say in their own government? Or is it really going to be a handful? Is it of and by and for a few who self-select, they self-propagate, they tell us who's going to be next? I think that's what it is. It's about power. Interestingly, the principles shouldn't be very different. We both, would say that we espouse, conservative thinking. But frankly, if you look at so many of those in the establishment, they're really not conservatives. They vote for things like bailouts. They vote for things like amnesty. They vote to go to war time and time again against the will of the American people. At many turns, these are not conservative people that are leading the Republican charge, and Mitch McConnell is primary among them.
We've got Linda calling in. We'll go to Linda. Linda, you're live on WLAP.
Hi, Matt.
Hey. Oh, yeah, so we're both Matt.
Sorry, yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Linda.
Okay, I was just curious why, because you talk about unnamed sources all the time and you kind of ridicule them, and now you're doing the same thing again. You're saying that according to one unnamed source, McConnell said this.
Linda, let me just want to clarify. Which Matt are you talking to? Matt Walsh or Matt Bevin?
I'm talking to Matt Walsh.
Oh, okay. Continue. So how do I get away with quoting unnamed sources? Is that your question?
Yes, and because you ridiculed before unnamed sources, and now you're using unnamed source, and I'm not a Mitch McConnell donor, and somehow or another I got on these conference calls, my name got on the list. That one I didn't happen to take because I wasn't feeling well, so I really can't say, but the one before that he had earlier, all he was doing was slamming Democrats, but you're using one unnamed source, and you use the word big donor. I'm not a donor,
I'm just going based on
and I'm on his conference call.
Okay, Linda.
So I don't understand this.
Well, I'm just going based on what the story says. I never said I knew it for a fact. I'm just saying an unnamed source. An unnamed source said this. I'm not saying anything that's inaccurate because an unnamed source did say that. So, and it's also there's nothing in this story that really jumps out as unbelievable because we know that Mitch McConnell has this attitude about. Thanks for calling. That Mitch McConnell has this attitude about the Tea Party. Do you think would you hesitate to bring this up, Matt, because it's an unnamed source?
I wouldn't. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, Breitbart is a pretty respected news outlet, and indeed, this has been picked up by Drudge and others that have a pretty wide following. And in fact, the McConnell people are already responding to this. They're not denying that this conversation took place. They're now trying to couch it and say, well, we didn't mean it the way it came out. So they're not denying it happened any more than they're denying that they took, Ted Cruz to the woodshed. This is just another step on the path of disregard for so many people that they need in order to be reelected.
All right, we'll go to Bill. I think he actually has something for Matt Bevin, not Matt Walsh. Bill, you're live on WLAP.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Matt.
How are you?
Hey, I'm at a location where there's construction going on that is going to have ultra slow traffic now through next March. How could I get some huge signs to put up for you? Because I email McConnell every day about how he's gone and how he's history.
Well, I tell you, I appreciate you asking. If you were to go to my website, it's just mattbevin.com, mattbevin.com. And then there's a place where you can click on a volunteer button. You can send a question and just let us know. We've got people here in Lexington. In fairness to them, I won't put their names out over the air, but we've got county coordinators who would be happy to get you hooked up, or wherever you are. We've got county coordinators in about 75 of the counties now. So wherever you are and wherever you would, and not only you, but the other listeners would be happy to get you hooked up with whatever materials you need.
Okay, because I want to get you out. Name recognition, as crazy as it sounds, you know how important that is. So.
Yes, sir. It absolutely is. And help us win that game.
Much.
All right, thanks a lot, Bill. What about how much have you communicated with the McConnell campaign, and what about a debate or anything? Is there anything in the works there?
Honestly, Matt, I'd love it. I think he will try very hard to avoid it. I have called for it a number of times, as have other people. There are people that are trying to put these things together. I think he'll try to avoid doing any at all, but my job is to ensure that he'll have to do at least one or two or three before we're done. And I just have to keep the pressure on to the point that he needs it in order to have any chance of winning himself. Now,
we got to take a break here in a minute. I wanted to ask you, everyone in D.C. anyway, talking about this nuclear option yesterday. What's your take on that?
I think it's a sad further example of just government overreach at every turn, where we don't even want to follow the procedures at hand because it's not expedient enough for jamming bad legislation down people's throats, bad appointments down people's throats. The American people are tired of the arrogance in Washington. I think just in general, it's a mistake on the part of Democrats to have done this because I think there will be a ripple effect. But at the end of the day, I think it's the American people who lose. Whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats trying to jam their will down the American people's throats, that's not the way it's supposed to work. It really isn't.
Do you think this is an issue that resonates with people because although it's very important, it also seems very inside baseball? Do you think the average American cares?
I think it is abstract, but I'll tell you where people should care is when it comes to appointments of people like Gina McCarthy to the head of the EPA. Because people who think, well, what's one judge? What's one, appointment here or there, or this agency or that agency? All this comes home to roost. and you get bad people in. One of the reasons this was done is because there's 3 vacancies. There's a Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. that hears most of the environmental appeals, among others. And there's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans right now and 3 vacant seats. This is so that they can jam 3 very liberal Democrats in there who will side with the president on everything, that it works very much against coal in particular. That's going to have a real cost on Kentucky, for Kentucky, and Kentuckians should care about this.
All right, we've got, let's see, I think we've got time for Mike. Mike, you're live on WLAP.
Thank you, Matt. If my memory serves, 2 or 3 months ago, this question of the nuclear option came up before, and I understood that Senator McConnell agreed not to filibuster any nominees if Senator Reid would not exercise that option. Now, it appears that he got taken to the cleaners again, and I would be interested in your response to his initial decision as well as the situation we're in now. Both of you, if you please.
Thanks, Mike. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you this. It's like dealing with North Korea in dealing with Harry Reid. I'm sure I'll get calls and thoughts on that. But the reality is I wouldn't trust Harry Reid farther than I could throw him. I really wouldn't. And I think, indeed, you're right. I think Mitch McConnell has gotten played again. For all of Mitch McConnell's supposed power and influence, he has gotten his lunch eaten time and time and time again by Harry Reid, and it's an embarrassment.
Although I would, not to correct you, but I do think that you could probably throw Harry Reid further than the North Korea guy because he's a pudgy man. But that's a separate issue. 280-2287, 1-800-606-4263. All right, we'll come back with a little more with Matt Bevin again if you want to call in. You have any comments or questions? We were just talking off there a little bit. We'll get back to the calls here in a second. 280-2287, 1-800-606-4263. So this really, this honestly, it was surprising to me. You were at a some sort of Christmas party at Boone County. Was this last week?
Last night, actually.
Last night, and
Judge Napolitano, Andrew Napolitano was the speaker, but this was the GOP county Christmas gala. They have it every year, and there were 700 people there in attendance. They did a straw poll, and while this is it's a very conservative part of the state. It's the 4th largest number of registered Republicans of any county in the state, in Boone County. And they did a straw poll asking those in attendance if the primary were tomorrow, would they vote for McConnell or Bevin or undecided. And I won that poll 365 to 54. It wasn't even close. I got like 85% of the vote. That was shocking even to the people who are supporters of mine. And McConnell immediately, the only response they've had is that, well, they didn't buy a table and I did, and that's why. Well, I bought a table of 10, one of whom didn't show at the last minute because of something that came up. So I was 9 out of 700. So it was surprising, but I think we're starting to see the tide turning in this state.
Yeah, I'm surprised by it too, honestly. I mean, I've been very anti-Republican establishment all along, but I was hesitant to believe that Mitch McConnell could be defeated, honestly, until recently. I mean, it really seems like the tide is turning, and it's just not even just in this state. I think it's just nationwide. I mean, there's this really strong anti-establishment feeling among conservatives.
There's also just, I think, there's a lot of fear, frankly, within the state party, and a lot of people that are afraid to say what they really think out loud or on the record. And I respect that to a degree, although it's a shame that we should be afraid of the people who work for us. That said, when people have a chance and no one's looking to fill out a ballot and turn it in, official or otherwise, I think we're going to see the same thing happen on May 20th. I think people will have the ability to go in and vote their conscience and vote what it is that they're interested in. It's why I encourage people, just because I'm not Mitch McConnell is no reason to support me. And I mean that sincerely. But if people go and kick the tires, go to mattbevin.com, understand what it is that I believe. What are the values that I will bring to Washington, that I will fight for on behalf of the people of Kentucky, and make an informed decision. I'm very confident that if people do that, I will win this going away.
Well, we've got plenty of calls, so we'll go back to the phones here. Larry, you're live on WLAP.
Yes, sir. Thanks to both of you for taking my call.
No problem. What's up?
Yeah, I was concerned if Mitch McConnell is the most powerful Republican out there, What do we lose, if anything, by voting him out? And I think that'll help people may help them make their minds up in this next election. And I'll hang up and let you answer.
Thanks, Larry.
Sure, that's a great question. I hear it a lot. I mean, a lot of people are worried that, gee, we're going to turn in this guy who's, a very senior, powerful person, and that's good for Kentucky. But is that really true? And Larry, that's the question I'd ask, is what has that influence and power done for anyone other than Mitch McConnell? How has it helped Kentucky? How has it helped America? Since earmarking ended, frankly, he can't even bring home bacon that your children and grandchildren are going to pay for. So that day is over. And I also would ask folks, who have been the real leaders in the last 2, 3, 4 years in the U.S. Senate? It's all the new guys. It's guys like Rand Paul, like Ted Cruz, like Mike Lee. Whether people like them, whether they don't like them, whether they agree with them or disagree with them, they are the only ones truly leading in the U.S. Senate today.
We'll go now to Mike. Mike, you're live on WLAP.
Hey, how you doing? Mr. Bevin, the question I have for you is, in a perfect world, say you get elected and then the Republicans take over the Senate, how do you feel about supporting the reinstatement of the filibuster rule, as Mr. McConnell has said, or would you keep the rule changed the way it was until the Republican Party could actually balance out the damage that the Democrats are going to do with it?
There may be those that would disagree with what I'm going to say, but I frankly think it should be reinstated because I think it was there for a reason. I don't think that a slim majority should have the ability to jam something down people's throats that is not clearly demanded and desired by people. And it allows bad appointees to be put in place when that shouldn't be the case. I don't think either party should have the ability to force their will on the American people. It should be the other way around. We, the people, should be represented. And one of the healthy things about requiring 60 votes is it forces there to be a compelling case for someone like an appointee or whatever the case might be. So I would be a proponent of reinstating it. I really would.
We've got Bill's got an interesting question. I'm gonna get to Bill. Bill, you're live on WLAP.
Hey, Matt. I think we're all in agreement that we would like to see fewer Democrats in office. Mm-hmm. But I'm just a little concerned because the last couple of cycles, I voted for Rand Paul in the primary, and I was happy to. And after that, everybody got behind Rand. Then when Senator Williams won the governor's primary, that did not happen. And I was just wondering if you will, if for example, if you do not win the primary, will you encourage support of Senator McConnell? Because I think our ultimate goal is winning and holding offices.
Thanks for calling, Bill. What do you
yeah, it's interesting, actually. I mean, you spoke about David Williams. You talk about Rand Paul. Two very, very different candidates. I mean, with all due respect to David Williams, he was a man who entered that race with as many people unenamored with him as the opposite, and that was evident at the turnout. Very, very few people turned out to vote, and even those who did, many didn't even bother to vote for governor. That's a shame. I think the caliber of the candidate determines in large measure what it is that people do. With respect to uniting, absolutely, we can't win, and with all due respect to Allison Grimes, I've met her on several occasions. She truly seems, to me at least, to be a very genuinely nice person. And I have nothing but good things to say about her personally, although I do very much believe that she's unqualified to be a senator. And I think it would be a shame if we allowed the state of Kentucky to be represented by somebody who's representing Hollywood values and values of groups like Emily's List. This is not in line with Kentucky values. So I think we would be wise to ensure that we do everything we can to put a true conservative voice in Washington representing the people of Kentucky, and that's exactly why I'm in this race.
But if you didn't win the primary, would you support Mitch McConnell?
I've been asked that question a number of times. I'll make that decision at that time as to exactly what I do or don't do overtly. I will tell you this, though. I've never voted for a Republican over a Democrat in any election, or supported or a Democrat, I should say, over a Republican, or supported a Democrat over a Republican. I don't see that changing, but I think it's premature for me to decide what I'm going to do 6 months from today.
Well, John wants to ask about issues pertaining to the state specifically. John, you're live on WLAP.
Yes, Mr. Bevin.
Yes, sir.
My question is, I have a problem with the 17th Amendment. I'm sorry. Andy Barr, represents my interest, even though he's taxed, right? Because he represents 700,000 people. That's too many. But anyway, So Andy Barr is protecting my community's interest. How are you going to protect Kentucky's interest? Because that's what a state senator is supposed to do.
Thanks for calling, John. It's a good question.
It is a good question and a very broad one. I think it's interesting, as you noted, the responsibility of a senator is twofold, not only to protect the interests of the entire state, but also to protect and be a representative for the people of the country. A senator, more so than a congressman, a representative, has that dual responsibility. I think it starts by listening to the people of Kentucky and understanding what it is they truly need. I think it comes from understanding that not just once every 6 years do you need to pretend to be a friend of coal, but when it's an opportunity, for example, to fight against someone like Gina McCarthy becoming the head of the EPA, that you stand up and you say, not on my watch. I think it comes from understanding that in northern Kentucky with the Brent Spence Bridge, that there's a huge piece of infrastructure that needs to be addressed and needs to be paid for. And when you're sending billions of dollars to Egypt for F-16s, and you're sending money to Hollywood subsidies and NASCAR subsidies and to your cronies at Amgen, but you don't seem to have any ability to do anything for your home state, I think that's a problem. And so the best I can do is pledge to you that I will listen to the true issues that affect people. Folks down in Butler County, they've got a dam there that really is critical, and that's something they've been begging for years to have addressed. They've had studies done that cost more than the proposals to fix the thing, but no action. It's important that your senator listen to those voices, stand up, and fight for the people of Kentucky, and that's what I pledge to do for you.
We only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask you about, I don't think we've talked about this yet, but speaking of issues that come up in this state quite a bit, couple of bills right now being pre-filed in the legislature dealing with expanded gambling in Kentucky. So where do you stand on gambling? Do you think it should be expanded?
I think that is a states' rights issue. I think put it to the ballot. I mean, I personally, my views on it, I'm not a gambler personally. And frankly, I have my thoughts as to how wise it is to spend one's free money doing that. But people could question, any number of things people do with their free time and money. We are a free society, and I think if the people of a state want something, put it on the ballot and let them make a decision.
All right, we'll try to get to the last couple of calls before we got to wrap things up. Steve, you're live on WLAP.
Hey, I wanted to ask Matt Bevin about couple things. One, if he would tell me what his approach would have been to the fight that they had back at the end of September on the end of the continuing resolution and the debt ceiling debate. And then this question is, I realize it's kind of against your own interest in what you're doing right now, but what is your feeling on a repeal of the 17th Amendment?
All right, two different questions. Thanks for calling, Steve. What do you say?
I know we're coming up against it, so let me try to hit the first one quick, and then the second one I'll say that's literally we could have a long conversation about the 17th Amendment. With respect to the fight on the CR and debt, what would I have done different? I would have absolutely not voted for cloture. Voting for cloture, as you know, meant simply to vote to end the debate. That allowed this to be thrown out of the Senate. Do you realize during the 2+ weeks of government shutdown, the U.S. Senate never voted on anything? They put all of the onus on the Republican-controlled House, who did their job over and over and over again. And Harry Reid chose to table all of the proposals they sent forward, which essentially means to ignore. And so Mitch McConnell voting for cloture gave the ability for Harry Reid to basically take no responsibility for this issue. I would not have voted for cloture. I would not have voted for it. I would have forced the debate to stay in the U.S. Senate, and that would have kept the pressure on the Democrats to do the will of the people. I think we would have had a very, very different result.
All right, we got to wrap it here, but Matt Bevin, thanks for coming in. Have a great Black Friday shopping. You doing that? You into that at all?
I'm not no. I try to avoid large, crowded shopping places on times like this.
Good move. It's a whole other topic is whether there should be shopping on Thanksgiving, but we can talk about that some other time. Matt Bevin, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right.